Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Clickbait. I was only able to watch the pilot episode because what all was to be tied in of what I was to do today, because I also had like this side project that I wasn't kind of aware of was going to just be a thing. So, kind of accumulating all the stuff that I had to do, this is like, oh, I can only like, because I normally watch the first two episodes, but I only could watch the pilot because that's all I had time to do. So, so for Clickbait, how did I feel about this show? Well, I felt that this show, there was an expedient part about it where I thought I was like, okay, why is this to have gone so hugely quickly in the pilot episode? And then there were also other parts where like this girl was taking a lot of time to connect a lot of people from Nick, who is to be this character who is to be forced to do this video on YouTube, to supposedly have to be forced to wait to die for whenever that is going to happen. Going into this show, like, because of this kind of the way that this pilot episode is to kind of be approached, like, I'm not 100% aware who everyone is in part of this world, because pilot episode. And it seems like they didn't make everything 100% crystal clear. Like I'm assuming that Sophie and Nick are to be married, and that Pi, I believe her name is to just be Nick's brother. The blonde who is to be kind of like be chasing around to try and get people's attention because she needs to figure out, like, hey, did like Nick call you? Like, is Nick here? Like, is Nick not on this video somewhere? Like, because this thing is going on, and like, I don't know if this is a prank or not. I don't know if this is real or not. I don't know if this is an actual happening. And we need to figure out how to stop this, prevent this, or something. But this video is to continue to spread and spread quickly. So I thought that this show was interesting, but also I'm just like, okay, there's going to be probably a stretch of process somewhere in this show. Like, I feel that what we're going to do is to show you kind of the quick events of something, and then probably other episodes are just going to go back into the past, or eventually find out that maybe Nick has a secret that he is not telling us, or maybe that there is to be more about these characters that we aren't exactly aware of. So I'm kind of curious how this is to all break down in this show. So I would just say that this is a good enough show to want to be kind of hooked into. So I'll see where this goes. And I hope to get more episodes of this out and reviewed, more than just the first pilot episode. I apologize. But, like, some people, like, could only break down like half of an episode. Like, yeah, I'm only going to watch the first half, and then we're going to see if this is popular enough, and I'll do the other half. Like, I'm going to try to like do like at least a whole episode of something, or at least try to do like at least more than one episode. So that's bound to happen. So that's all I guess I really want to say about this show so far, because there's not much to say for a pilot, just one episode. I would need a lot more things to say, but I just don't have the, like, if I said any more, it would spoil the episode. So let's just go into it. Let's go into that double five time territory, because it's about that coveted time again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time you just spoil this episode. So we find out that I'm hoping that this is Pia or Pi, Again, I'll go into further episodes and I'll know the pronunciation because a lot of times people will eventually say, "Hey man, learn the name," and I'm just like, names don't matter to me. Uh, really, they don't. Like it's just like I feel like this story is more important than whatever person's name is. But eventually, people will probably figure it out while I'm talking because it's the person who is to be Paya or Pi is to be the main focus of this episode. So we have Pi who is to go to a woman named Andrea's birthday. And I'm assuming that this is Nick and Pi's mother, I'm assuming. I'm assessing. Could be wrong. It seems like I don't have enough context to really understand who this person is. So we'll get there. So I guess Pi is to have gotten very drunk after going to this club, and she is to text this one guy and eventually drop her cell phone in the toilet and flush it. So Pi ended up going on and needing to put some rice on her phone because normally if you were to put your phone into water, because knock knock will the Keanu Reeves movie Knock Knock will tell you the exact same thing. That if your cell phone is to be dunked in water, put rice in it, and like hopefully it should be perfectly fine by however X amount long. So Pi is to put her phone in this thing, and so eventually it seems like she's scrounging for food. She's putting some weird or odd things together to just eat because I guess like there's a lot of times where a lot of people can get very drunk and then they could get really just hungry. I've had that happen where like you get really buzzed and you're just like, hey, like could I get some like mozzarella sticks or could I get some kind of like something to like fight off like the whole alcohol of things? Or you just want water. That's usually another thing too, and then you'll have to pee a lot because that always happens. So Pi is to go to her job the next day, which is for her to be a nurse. And so she is to, I guess, take blood from one of her patients, which I believe this guy's name is to be. I want to say that it's Jack, but I could be wrong about that. Um, yeah, Jack. I can probably confirm that now. So, while this guy is to eventually get his blood transfusion, whatever it's to actually be, because I don't know much about this character, all of a sudden he's like, hey, so while you're doing that, like, how about like we go and watch some YouTube videos? And Pi is like, okay, great. Like it seems that uh pick me something out that we can both watch together. And so Jack is kind of thumbing through and he's to kind of show her a video and this girl's like, no, like I've already seen that one. And so there's to be this person who has this more current upload. And so he's like, hey, let's watch this. And so all of a sudden we find out that this YouTuber is to be promoting this other video that she had found on the internet where some guy is to mention with some signs that supposedly the first thing that is to be mentioned is that he was to abuse a woman supposedly, and then the thing after that was to say at 5 million views I die. And Pi is to realize that like the writing that is on these notes are actually to have been Nick's writing. And so since Pi is to see this video, she's like, oh my god, like now I need to go and crazily like leave everything that I'm doing right now and go and try to call some people, which immediately pushes her on to just going and finding any of these people without the expressed written consent of wherever she's going into. Like, with anybody that's just to be like, well, like you can't just go in there. She's just going to go in there. She's like, no, like I need to talk to this person right here now. I need to have him stop whatever he's doing because this is important. And eventually they find out that, yeah, this is really important. So, anyways, so Pi is to call Nick's friend that he is to co-work with. It seems like this guy is to be like some uh, like sports guy for this school, and so Pi is to go to this school and is to mention like, hey, is Nick here? Because I guess Nick is to work for the school. They're to say no, he didn't show up for his class, and so Pi is just like, well, okay, well, can I talk to so and so teacher? And they're like, well, we can't just easily just have you go and do that. And she's like, well, watch me. So Pi is to go to Nick's like co-working friend and mention about this, and so this guy kind of just drops what he's doing, like teaching these girls, I guess, some kind of sport, maybe volleyball or something. And Pi is to tell him what's going on. And this guy's just like, well, okay, let's go on. And like, we need to figure out a way to stop this. We need to figure out a way to like get police involved or something. So Pi is to eventually go on and try to get this video reported, but supposedly it's going to take 48 hours to have somebody go through and check this video. And so she's like, oh, great, 48 hours. I'm like, I'm sorry, I've never had a deadline for anything for YouTube video that says like they'll check it immediately within 48 hours. Like they'll just get to it whenever they want to get to it. Really, so that way they can leave things open-ended. So, in all honesty, nothing wrong with YouTube. Like, hey, they have enough freaking on their plate. Like, freaking, they have something that I'm going to be involved in for whatever reason on their plate. So, like, how can they go and check every little bit of whatever when they have so much crap to do? So, so this is so what is to happen is supposedly this guy that Pi used to be with is supposedly mentioned that he was eventually going to be mixed up with her at some kind of point, but Nick had mentioned like, hey, if you hurt her, like I'm gonna hurt you, kind of thing. So this guy kind of stayed away because Nick was to be overprotective of Pi, which is kind of interesting because when Pi was to be at this birthday party for Andrea, Nick and Pi got into this argument, and like the last thing that they were kind of to talk to one another was them kind of treating one another like crap. So Pi and this guy is to go to the authorities, and it seems like they aren't even close to trying and figuring things out. And so they tell him about this whole thing, and they're just like, well, we'll figure something out, we'll get right on it. But it all of a sudden really just has Pi having to figure out things for them by having Jack kind of having this information of like, hey, like, it seems like this video was taken in some certain specific kind of truck, that there's to be a limited number of these certain kind of trucks that still exist, because there is to be a sticker that is to have been seen at some corner of one of these videos that Jack ended up finding out for Pi, because they were trying to piece things together. There, I guess, was some private investigators that were going to go out of their way to figure this thing out. So luckily they figured this out. So Pi is to eventually bring this to the authorities that, hey, like, there's a truck logo off to the side of this thing, and the cops are just like, oh yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to easily figure that out now. Like, I'm sure we'll just put every piece of this all together. So, as this is to further go along, Pi is to consistently check on this video to see how uploads are going, because like it like quickly like crosses like freaking like it goes from like a really brief number of views where Pi is thinking like, oh okay, so this will take a while to get done, to where it just starts to really just all of a sudden everybody's aware of it, and so it really starts to gain some severe ground where all of a sudden towards the end of this episode everyone is starting to talk about it, and they're like, hey, don't watch this video, don't look at Pi. It's just like, everyone, do not watch this video, do not put another view into this thing, because like after 5 million views this guy will die. And so like by the time, like by a bulk of this video is to be done, like we're at like 3 million views already in like a day. I'm like, holy crap, like who is to like try to get this video out there so quickly? And there's a bunch of comments going on also just mentioning that this guy like was a horrible person and that he deserves it. And we don't even know all the variables, we don't know all this stuff, like we don't know any truth about this. So there's also to be bizarrely a second video that had gone up mentioning that supposedly Nick had killed a person, or killed a woman supposedly, and the same thing goes up at 5 million views, I die. So it's like, wait a minute, so is this to just be like a continuous thing now where like this is to be some clickbait thing where we're going to find out that this guy is going to keep doing these videos and to never actually die, but they're going to see like how much money that they can get out of this? Is this some kind of heist or some kind of, that's why they call it clickbait, where this thing is going to continue to get out there? Because by the very end of this episode, the very first video is to get to 5 million views. So what is the next step here? What is going to happen next? But so we have Pi having to rush to go to Sophie's school, running into her classroom and having people like telling her, hey, you shouldn't be here. And so Pi's just like, I'm just gonna go in here, I'm gonna tell Sophie about this. And so Sophie is to be a teacher, and so Sophie is to like, because Pi's be like banging at her door just saying, hey, I need you, come over here. So Sophie is to have to confirm to these people that Pi knows her, and so now Pi has to tell her about the video. And so Sophie is just like, oh my god. So Sophie like takes the rest of the day off to try to figure out how she can like help or whatever. She ends up telling both of her kids about this video, but hey, don't watch this. To just let them know, because I'm sure they heard about it anyways. So yeah, so this thing eventually escalates into them getting like 5 million views upon this very first episode. And that's kind of how the very first episode is to end. That we are to eventually just find that the cops probably aren't really going to do anything, or maybe they're thinking that this is a hoax, or maybe they're thinking any number of things, because this guy could have probably done any number of videos, and eventually he was to just get killed off anyways. Like, who knows when this thing was to actually be put together, because it doesn't say the word live stream on these videos. It doesn't say, like, it just like kind of counts down the number of views that are to happen on the video, which technically wouldn't, like, I don't quite get why there's a counter on the video. Wouldn't there be a counter on the actual, like, YouTube thing? But I guess they were trying to avoid making anything look like YouTube, because they just kind of showed mostly just the video or whatever. So Yeah, so like that seems to be a bulk of what this episode was, and I basically only took 20 minutes to talk about it. And it was like about 40 minutes worth of an episode. So yeah, I guess like more likely there should have been a lot more said here, but there really isn't. It's just basically Pi running around through this entire episode, trying to understand what's going on with Nick. And so the first video where he's talking about that he abused a woman was in his handwriting. The second video where it was to mention that he killed some woman was not in his handwriting. So like they had to figure that out. And so like I'm wondering if people are just kind of bribing people to get this YouTube money. And Jack was trying to figure out how to find out the source of this video, but no one could really figure it out. And Jack was to say, it's like, you know what, it's not all that easy. But Pi was to mention, it's like, well, I think there should have been a way to figure this whole out. Like, there should be an easy way to, like, supposedly, like, this girl learned something through some news about, like, them being able to track down these videos, but this guy is like, I don't know. But eventually he finds out more information about this, and so he ends up giving that information to Pi. So, yeah, I guess that's all I could say about this episode. So, like, that's all that I have information about this episode. There might have been something here or there that I didn't quite place, but I do apologize about that. But that's all the time I have for. So, because that's all I have to say about the show. So it's just kind of like, okay, I need more information, and I hope later on I'll get that. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.